Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be making a knife out of this railroad spike. I'm going to do a pineapple twist on the handle. I also call it a dragon scale twist because that's kind of what it looks like. I'm going to show you guys a pineapple twist that I did a while back on my twisting wrench. You can kind of see why it sort of looks like dragon scales. So I'm going to be calling this a Dragon's Breath railroad spike knife because I'm also going to do something pretty cool to the knife blade itself that you guys will see a little bit later. I'm going to get to work on the handle first. So I've gone ahead and chiseled 4 lines in this railroad spike, as you can see, on all 4 sides, and then I've flattened this head of the spike out. The reason for that is because now I'm going to twist it one full twist, and this is a lot easier to grip onto than the regular head is with my twisting wrench. What I'm going to do after that, so I'm going to twist it, and then I'm going to make it square again, and then I'm going to cut the same channels in this piece, like the same way that you see now, and then I'm going to untwist it. Now, if that seems a little complicated, that's because it kind of is. If you don't understand, just continue watching, and it'll become clear as I continue on with this. So as you can see, I've given it one full twist. I'm now going to make it square again by flattening out the 4 sides, like so. So the next step is to cut 4 more lines down each side and then untwist it. So as you can see, I've got the 4 lines chiseled down the length of the handle of this railroad spike knife once again, or a railroad spike at the moment. It's not very much of a knife. But what I am going to do now is go ahead and untwist it a full turn, and that'll bring out the pattern that I have chiseled in here. At that point, I'm going to hook up my forge press and then start working on the blade. The reason I usually use the forge press to make the blades on these is because it's a lot quicker to get the transition between the handle and the blade exact with that than it is to hammer it and tweak it and everything. So I'll draw this down most of the way by hand on my bottom fuller here with my rounding hammer. And then once I'm done with that, I'll take just this transition part, heat it up, and go and flatten it out with the press. But for now, I'm going to go ahead with the untwisting of the handle and start drawing out the blade of this knife. So I've gone ahead and untwisted it. Now, I actually misspoke when I said before that you have to untwist it a full turn. You're only supposed to untwist it half of a turn. So I'm glad I figured that out. But the handle portion is now done except for some basic shaping. I'm going to move on to drawing out that blade portion. So as you can see, I've made a little notch in the back of the blade here. What I'm going to do with that is actually something pretty special. I'm actually going to put a scroll on the blade itself. So that'll be interesting. I've made one of these knives before and put a scroll in it. So this is kind of a new sort of thing for me to do, but I think it looks pretty cool. I think it kind of looks like flames just a little bit, which is why I'm calling this, along with the fact that the handle is a pineapple twist or a dragon scale twist. That's why I call this kind of railroad spike knife the Dragon's Breath railroad spike knife. But I think it looks really cool. So before I move on to beveling, I'm going to heat this back up, and I'll show you guys how I'm going to make that scroll with the use of a chisel. Okay, so I'm going to come in right where that notch ends with my chisel here. I'm going to cut a straight line, about 1/2 inch or so, maybe a little bit more, back into the blade straight. And once I'm done chiseling this most of the way through on this side, I'm actually going to come from the other side and do the same thing. And then once I've done that, what I can do is spread this away from the back of the blade and actually draw it out and then scroll it back on itself. So it should look very, very cool when it's done. So once again, I've flipped this blade over and I'm coming back in the same exact spot on just from the opposite side of where I made the first chisel cut, like so. I'm going to continue coming back a little bit longer than this chisel. So just add like 1/16 of an inch to the end of my chisel here. Okay. Now the brilliant thing about doing it this way is that I can actually chisel right onto my anvil face, because it'll shear before the chisel actually cuts into my anvil. And this chisel is actually unhardened as well, which means that even if it does hit the face of the anvil, it won't actually damage the anvil at all. Which, on a lot of anvils, some people who didn't know what they were doing, this is a common misconception. This plate here is not actually a chisel plate, which a lot of people used to think it was. What it actually was is a squaring up plate. It used to be an extremely precise, measured piece on all or most anvils that actually had it. The issue is people thought it was a chisel plate and used it to chisel stuff. And then over the years, they became warped and dented, so now they're actually pretty much useless as the true surface they were meant to be. But now that I have this piece chiseled out, I'm going to get my Hardy Hot Cut so I can spread that little piece there away from the main blade, and then draw it out and scroll it back on itself. So now I'm going to move on to beveling, and then as you can see in here, yeah, there you go. As you can see in here, the transition between the scroll and the blade's a little rough, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that up with my cutoff wheel and my grinder. And then I actually have a very exciting new piece of equipment in my workshop. I went on Amazon and got a 1x30 little belt grinder, because my big belt grinder is not made precisely, so I can't do plunge lines on it, but I can now do plunge lines on my knives, which just adds that extra little bit of quality to the things that I make. So I'm very happy with it. I will say the motor is only 1/3 of a horsepower, so it's a little underpowered for hogging off a lot of material, but for 50 bucks, it's really like a very good purchase for $50. I mean, you've got a choice between a little underpowered, so it takes you a little bit longer to make a knife, or you can spend $2 grand on a 2x72 belt grinder that can do plunge lines. Now, my original belt grinder that me and my grandpa and my dad made is actually a 2x72 inch, because that is the optimum size for making large knives. But we were just not able to get it super precise like the machine-made ones are. But I'm very happy with this grinder. I would recommend it to anybody who wants to get into knife making and knife smithing. But that's about all I'm going to do for the beveling. I want to leave it a little thick. Carbon steel knives I make, because the railroad spikes at best are medium carbon steel, closer to 1045 than they are the optimal 1084 or 1095 steel. So they don't actually harden as well, which means that A, they don't hold quite as good of an edge as a high carbon steel blade, and B, they are a little bit weaker structurally than a high carbon steel blade. That being said, they are very cool, and they're very, good decorative knives. I wouldn't exactly take this as your everyday utility knife, but I very much enjoy the look of these railroad spike knives. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do a little bit more shaping on this handle. I like to slightly curve the handles of my railroad spike knives. I think it gives them a better look. But there will be a link in the description if you guys want to go check it out. I'm actually going to be selling this knife on Etsy. I have an Etsy shop. I haven't used it in a number of years. I think 2016 was the last time it was active. But I'm starting that up again just as kind of a little bit of an experiment. But if you guys are interested in this railroad spike and some other styles that I have, as well as some other little trinkets, you can go on there and check it out. I would appreciate that a lot. It would help me out. But yeah, I've just got to bend this handle, the opposite of straighten out the handle. And then I should be good to go for grinding on that aforementioned 1x30 belt grinder. Got to straighten it out a little bit. Unfortunately, I don't have a wooden mallet, so I may mess up the pattern of the... Well, it didn't mess it up too bad. I was afraid I might accidentally mess up the pattern of the dragon scale twist on here, but it didn't end up doing that, so I'm happy with that. That looks good and straight to me. The belts that I have for this new belt grinder are cubic zirconium belts, which is a slightly nicer kind of grinding belt. It lasts a little bit longer and it cuts a bit deeper. I only have up to 120 grit sanding belts on there though, unfortunately. So I'm waiting until Tuesday where I'll have up to 1,000 grit sanding belts for more finer finishing and polishing, so that I can go straight from that belt grinder to my buffing wheel without having to do anything in between. Completely eliminate hand sanding and everything, which will be cool because that means I can make knives faster and to a higher degree of quality at the same time. So that's pretty exciting. But I'm gonna go over to grinding now. I'll kind of showcase the belt grinder a little bit. It's a pretty small compared to my other one, so it's a lot different, but I like it a lot. So I've got the bevels ground in. I've got it up to 120 grit, and then I've got this transition between the scroll and the blade cleaned up to where I want it. I'm going to move on to hand sanding, just to get it down to a low enough grit where I can take it to my Scotch-Brite wheel and my buffer. And once that's done, I'll show you guys the finished product. So here's the finished knife. I've gone ahead and buffed it to a mirror polish, and then used a wire wheel to clean up the handle and the back side of the blade there where it's not polished. I really like how this one turned out. Again, it is on sale on Etsy at HF Forge. I'm going to leave a link in the description to my page and to the exact link that'll take you to this listing in particular. So go check that out. If you guys want to check that out for me, that would be awesome. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and a comment, and please subscribe, and share it with people you think may be interested. This helps me out a lot as far as getting known in the YouTube community. Thanks again, and I hope to see you all in the next one.